Hello, this is Junhwa. Welcome back to my channel. We're starting our new series of TCM Internal Medicine. In this series, we'll learn about TCM diagnosis, pattern differentiation, and treatment of disease. Everything we'll be learning today is going to be posted on my blog, and modifications of formulas and acupuncture prescriptions will be there, so make sure to check them out as well. In this video, we are going to learn about headaches. Headaches can be divided into two big groups according to causes of the disease. One is caused by exterior invasion, and the other is caused by internal damage. Exterior invasion is the intrusion of the external pathogens such as wind. Wind is a young pathogen that has an inclination to attack the young part of the body, including the head, which is the meeting point of all young channels and the highest part of our body. It is most likely that wind will combine with other pathogens such as cold, heat, or dampness, causing various signs and symptoms. Internal damage can be further divided into two groups, excess and deficiency. For excess, there are blood stasis and phlegm. Liver yang rising also has excess signs and symptoms, but the underlying cause is deficiency. For deficiency, there are qi deficiency, blood deficiency, and kidney deficiency. When we diagnose headache, in addition to differentiating whether it is external or internal, we also consider channel differentiation. Depending on the location of the headache, we suspect which channel is affected. For instance, occipital headache and pain of the nape involves Tai-Yang channel, and we call it Tai-Yang headache. Temporal headache, we call it Xiao-Yang headache. Frontal headache, we call it Yang-Ming headache. And vertex headache, we call it Jue-Yin headache. According to channel differentiation, we can tailor our acupuncture point prescription or add guiding herbs. Exterior invasion and internal damage will cause either blockage of the channel or malnourishment of the channel, leading to pain, in this case headache. For the most part, exterior invasion is related to sudden onset with signs and symptoms of common cold and relatively short duration of disease, whereas internal damage is related to chronic condition with relapse. Now let's take a look at our first pattern of the exterior invasion, wind cold. Signs and symptoms are intermittent headache, neck and shoulder pain, feeling restricted and tight, aversion to wind or cold, worsen with exposure to wind, absence of thirst, low fever, and runny nose. Tongue is red and the coating is thin and white. Pulse is floating or floating and tight. This headache is often accompanied by neck and shoulder pain with a feeling of restriction and tightness. Wind attacks the young part of the body, such as head, nape, and shoulder, where Tai-Yang channel traverses. Cold contracts the channel and tissues, leading to pain, restriction in movement, and tightness. Because the channel is invaded by wind and cold pathogens, there will be aversion to wind or cold, worsening with exposure to wind, and a runny nose. Since this is a wind-cold invasion, there may be low fever, but no thirst. Thin white coating shows that there is no heat, and the disease is acute in nature. Floating pulse indicates that there is exterior invasion, and tight pulse shows that there is cold. Treatment principle is to dispel wind and disperse cold. For wind-cold headache, we can consider using Chuanxiong Cha-Tiao-San. This formula is prepared as a powder form and taken with tea to accentuate the formula's upbearing qi and dispelling wind action, but it can also be taken as a decoction. Chuanxiong is a very important herb for treating all types of headache. It moves blood, expels wind, and stops pain. Jianghuo, Baizhi, and Xixin treat headaches as well, but each targets specific channel. These are the guiding herbs I mentioned before. Jianghuo goes to Tai-Yang channel, treating occipital headache, nape, and shoulder pain. Baizhi goes to Yang-Ming channel, treating frontal headache and sinus pain. Xixin goes to Xiao-Yin channel, treating headache in the brain. Jingjie and Fangfeng are herbs that release the exterior. They are mild in action, So depending on which herbs are used together, they can treat either heat pattern or cold pattern. Fangfeng is similar to Qianghuo, Baizhi, and Xixin in that they all dispel wind, disperse cold, and remove dampness, treating wind, cold, damp related pain, including headache. It is known to dispel wind and stop pain in the whole body. Bohe dispels wind as well as clears the head. And Gantao harmonizes herbs and alleviates urgency of the condition. We can use Jigantao. These signs and symptoms and the formula are presented as an example to help us understand this pattern. In real situation, patients will not manifest all of the signs and symptoms, or there could be other extra signs and symptoms. So the most important thing when diagnosing a patient is to differentiate the pattern as a whole and then add and subtract herbs according to specific signs and symptoms. Second pattern of the exterior invasion is wind heat. Signs and symptoms are distending headache, splitting headache in severe cases, fever, sore throat, aversion to wind, red complexion, red eyes, thirst, constipation, and scanty dark urine. Tip of the tongue is red and the coating is thin and yellow. Pulse is floating and moderate, or floating and rapid. In this pattern, we have heat instead of cold. We still have aversion to wind. Characteristic of wind heat headache is distending pain and splitting pain. We can see heat signs and symptoms such as fever, sore throat, red complexion, red eyes, thirst, constipation, and scanty dark urine. Tip of the tongue is red with a yellow coating, and the pulse is rapid, which all indicates that there is heat. Treatment principle is to dispel wind and clear heat. We can consider using 胸直石膏汤. This formula is originally for chronic conditions where patients repeatedly manifest wind heat signs and symptoms. Here we also use 川芎, 姜火, and 白芷. Gaoban is milder than 姜火, but it is also a Tai-Yang channel guiding herb that goes to bladder and governing channels, treating occipital and vertex headache. Juhua dispels wind and clears heat. It is commonly used for headache or eye problems of heat pattern. Huangjuhua is used for wind heat. If there's eye problems, Baijuhua can be used. Shigao is a herb that drains fire. This herb is good especially if there's irritability and thirst. We can also consider other formulas such as Zhangzhu Yin or Yin Qiao San. But we have to remember that each formula has its own indications, and we still need to modify formula to focus on resolving the main complaint, which is headache. And one thing I want to remind you is that a formula is a combination of herbs with different qualities, such as temperature and taste. For instance, 胸直石膏汤 has releasing wind-cold herbs, such as 姜火, 白芷, and gaoban, even though this formula is for wind heat. These herbs are important guiding herbs with stopping pain actions, so they are necessary. So to make it more appropriate for the wind heat pattern, this formula has included Juhua and Shigao. The last pattern of the exterior invasion is wind damp. Signs and symptoms are tension headache, feeling like a tight band around the head, heaviness of head, body, and extremities, worsen with cloudy, rainy weather, chest distress, low appetite, difficulty urinating, and loose stool. Tongue is pale and the coating is white and greasy, pulse is soft. Tension headache with a feeling of a tight band around the head is a typical description of wind damp headache. Heaviness of head, body, and extremities is due to dampness in the body. Damp can block the smooth flow of qi in the chest, causing chest distress. It can hinder the qi mechanism of spleen and stomach, causing low appetite and even nausea. It can also hinder the qi transformation in the bladder, causing difficulty urinating. Damp may manifest in intestines, leading to loose stool. These signs and symptoms will get worse with cloudy, rainy weather, since there is more dampness the body needs to deal with. For damp, we look for the greasy coating and soft pulse. Treatment principle is to dispel wind and remove damp. We can consider using 姜活上湿汤. This formula is originally for wind, damp, painful obstruction, causing headache and body ache. 姜活 treats the upper part of the body, and 毒活 treats the lower part of the body. We learned that Fang Feng is known to dispel wind and stop pain in the whole body. Combining these herbs increases the strength of dispelling wind, dispersing cold, and removing damp actions. And we talked about 川芎 and 藁板. 蔓荆子 also dispels wind and removes damp like 姜活 and 毒活. Similar to 薄荷 and 菊花, this herb is commonly used for headache and eye problems. 甘草 harmonizes the herbs and alleviates urgency of the condition. The guiding herb for the tie-in headache or wind-damp headache is 苍术. 苍术 is like baizu, but it can induce sweating, so it is used for the exterior invasion pattern. Moving on to internal damage, we have liver yang rising. This is an excess presentation of liver yang or liver wind due to deficiency of liver and kidney. When liver and kidney yin is deficient, there is relative excess of liver yang or liver heat, which in turn causes stirring of liver wind. Signs and symptoms are distending headache, especially on both sides of the head, dizziness, irritability, worsen with anger, restless sleep, bitter taste in the mouth, dry mouth, red complexion, red eyes, hypochondriac pain, a feeling of incomplete bowel emptying. Tongue is red and the coating is yellow. Pulse is wiry and rapid. Distending headache is from excess yang or heat. Pain on both sides of the head, hypochondriac pain, and bitter taste in the mouth that are worse with anger indicate that liver and gallbladder are involved. Wiry pulse is also the liver pulse. Irritability, restless sleep or insomnia, dry mouth, red complexion, red eyes, red tongue, yellow coating, and rapid pulse are signs and symptoms of heat. Excess liver yang rising causes dizziness. There is a feeling of incomplete bowel emptying because the liver qi is not flowing smoothly, causing an abnormal emptying action of large intestine. Treatment principle is to calm liver and anchor yang. We can consider using 天麻果汤饮. 天麻 and 果汤 can calm liver and extinguish wind. These two herbs are important herbs for headache or dizziness from the liver yang pattern. 石决明, 川牛膝, and 益母草 have down-bearing actions. 石决明 calms liver, drains fire, and sedates liver yang. It's a heavy substance that subdues and anchors the liver yang. 川牛膝 and 益母草 are blood-moving herbs that have an action of clearing heat by promoting urination. 川牛膝 is also known to bring blood and heat downward. 栀子 and 黄芩 clear heat. 栀子 is good at eliminating irritability, and it also clears heat by promoting urination. 黄芩 clears heat in the upper jaw and sedates ascendant liver yang. 茯苓 and 首乌藤 calm the spirit, treating insomnia. 首乌藤 can also nourish blood and unblock the channel, treating pain. Because the underlying cause of this pattern is deficiency, we add a few tonifying herbs such as 桑寄生 and 杜仲, which tonify liver and kidney. Blood stasis headache is a headache that has been there for a long time, or a headache with a history of physical injury. Signs and symptoms are fixed, sharp stabbing pain, vexation, dry mouth, and constipation. Tongue is dark and purple or has purple spots. Pulse is thin or thin and choppy. Characteristic of the blood stasis pattern is that the pain is sharp and stabbing at a fixed location. There may be vexation because the pathologic condition of the blood, which would affect the functions of liver and heart in storing and governing blood and spirit. Dark purple tongue or purple spots and choppy pulse indicate blood stasis. Since blood and body fluids share the same origin, when the blood has problems, there may be problems with body fluids as well, causing signs and symptoms such as dry mouth and constipation. Treatment principle is to invigorate blood and transform stasis. We can consider using 通窍活血汤. 桃仁, 红花, 赤芍, and 川芎 are important herbs for any blood stasis patterns. Tauren has additional action of moistening the intestines and unblocking bowels. 川芎, as we know, treats headache. 老葱 is 葱白. Blood stasis means there is cold. Weak yang qi cannot propel the blood, and cold congeals blood. 葱白disperses cold and unblock yang. 黄酒 is added to further warm and invigorate blood. 生姜 and 大枣 harmonize the function of spleen and stomach so that they can produce new blood. 麝香 is a deer musk. It invigorates blood, unblocks the channel, and stops pain. We can omit this herb since we want to protect our animals. Next is phlegm headache. Signs and symptoms of phlegm headache are headache with a feeling of heaviness, brain fog, a stifling sensation in the chest, focal distension in the epigastrium, worsen with cloudy weather, dizziness, low appetite, and nausea. Tongue is pale or swollen. Tongue coating is white and greasy. Pulse is slippery or wiry and slippery. Think of phlegm as a byproduct of our body that we do not want. This is the same for the blood stasis. They do not have physiological function, instead hinders a smooth flow of qi. Normal body fluids may be accumulated in certain parts of body, forming damp. Over time, damp can turn into phlegm and even transform into heat. Headache with a feeling of heaviness, brain fog, a stifling sensation in the chest, focal distension in the epigastrium, dizziness, low appetite, and nausea are all different manifestations of turbid phlegm damp present in various parts of our body. And these will get worse with cloudy weather. Pale or swollen tongue indicates that yang qi is not working properly, causing cold and body fluid accumulation. Greasy coating and slippery pulse show that there is dampness. Wiry also indicates dampness, abnormal flow of qi, or pain. Treatment principle is to transform phlegm, direct rebellious qi downward. We can consider using 半夏白术天麻汤. This formula is originally used for wind phlegm causing dizziness. One thing to remember is that this wind refers to the internal wind, not the external invasion. So there is no chills and fever, but more pronounced signs and symptoms of internal damp or phlegm. 半夏 and 天麻 are the key herbs. 半夏 dries damp, transforms phlegm, and directs rebellious qi downward. 天麻 calms liver and extinguishes wind, treating headache. As we know, spleen and stomach are the origin of the phlegm. We use 白术, 茯苓, 生姜, 大枣, and 炙甘草 to tonify spleen and stomach. 白术 and 茯苓leach out dampness and transform phlegm. 橘红 is a regulating qi herb that also dries dampness and transforms phlegm. Now let's look at the deficiency pattern. Qi deficiency headache is a mild headache that comes and goes and worsens with activity. Other signs and symptoms are sallow complexion, low appetite, abdominal distension, fatigue, shortness of breath, spontaneous sweating, clear urine, and loose stool. Tongue is pale and the coating is white. Pulse is thin and weak. Sallow complexion, low appetite, abdominal distension, fatigue, and loose stool are due to spleen deficiency. Shortness of breath, spontaneous sweating, and clear urine are due to lung deficiency. Treatment principle is to tonify qi and upbear the clear. We can consider using 益气聪明汤. This formula is originally used for sense organ problems, headache, and dizziness from yang qi failing to ascend. Huang qi, ren shen, and 炙甘草 are tonifying herbs. Huang qi tonifies spleen and raises the clear. It also tonifies lung and stabilizes the exterior, stopping spontaneous sweating. 人参 tonifies yuan qi and strengthens spleen and lung. 炙甘草 tonifies spleen and lung. It alleviates pain as well. This is a good reminder that when we tonify qi, we are trying to augment the functions of the lung and spleen. 葛根, shengma, and manjingzi upbear the clear. As we know, the head is the meeting place of all yang. Since deficient patients cannot bring the clear qi to the head, we can help them upbear the clear by using these herbs. They all belong to releasing exterior herbs which have upbearing action. Guogen helps with the tightness of the nape and shoulder, but it is also known as a guiding herb for Yangming headache. We talked about manjingzi. It clears and benefits the head and eyes. Huangbai and Baishao are used to clear liver and brighten eyes. Huangbai clears heat in the lower jaw, and Baishao cools liver and nourishes blood, which in turn benefits the eyes. If there's no sense organ problems, they can be omitted. Blood deficiency signs and symptoms are headache with dizziness, palpitation, lassitude of spirit, and lack of strength. Tongue is pale and the coating is thin and white. Pulse is thin and weak. Dizziness and palpitation show that blood is deficient. Lassitude of spirit and lack of strength are signs and symptoms of deficiency. For blood deficiency, look for the pale tongue and thin, weak pulses. There also may be sleep issues, vision problems, and dryness. Treatment principle is to nourish yin and blood. We can consider using 加味四物汤, the modification of 四物汤, which is made of 熟地黄, 芍药, 当归, and 川芎. This formula tonifies blood. 熟地黄 nourishes yin and tonifies blood. 芍药 cools and nourishes blood. It also has actions of preserving yin and stopping pain. 当归 tonifies blood, invigorates blood, and moistens intestine, unblocking bowels. 川芎 invigorates blood, and it also treats headache. 熟地黄, 芍药, and 当归 nourish yin blood, while 当归 and 川芎 invigorates blood and prevent stasis. As we know, 菊花 and manjingzi clear head and eyes. Here is the last pattern of the headache, kidney deficiency. Signs and symptoms are empty headache, dizziness, tinnitus, soreness and weakness of the low back and knee, lassitude of spirit, lack of strength, insomnia, forgetfulness, spermaturia, and leukorrhea. Tongue is red and the coating is scanty. Pulse is thin and weak. Brain is known as the seal marrow, and kidney essence produces marrow. That's why we see empty headaches, tinnitus, dizziness, and forgetfulness. Since kidney governs the low back and liver governs the tendons and knee, there is soreness and weakness of the low back and knee. Lassitude of spirit and lack of strength are the deficiency signs and symptoms. There may be empty heat from yin deficiency, causing insomnia, spermaturia, or leukorrhea. For yin deficiency, we look for scanty coating. Treatment principle is to tonify kidney and replenish essence. We can consider using 大补元煎, 熟地黄, 山药, 山茱萸 are the main herbs. 熟地黄 replenishes essence and tonifies liver and kidney. 山药 and 山茱萸 tonify liver, spleen, and kidney, and also stabilize and bind, treating spermaturia or leukorrhea. 枸杞子 and 杜仲 nourish liver and kidney. 枸杞子 focuses on the eyes, while 杜仲 focuses on the sinews and bones. 人参 tonifies qi and 当归 tonifies blood. 炙甘草 also tonifies qi and has action of harmonizing all the herbs in the formula. So we covered the exterior and internal causes of headaches, a total of 9 patterns. There are more patterns and even more formulas, but for now I think we have a good start. As we go over more patterns for different diseases, we'll be learning how formulas are constructed and how one formula can be modified and used for multiple conditions. And in the end, hopefully we won't have to memorize every single formula in history, but we can utilize what we know and even come up with our own formula. Until then, let's have some fun and see you soon.